Now we're in 2026 and it's only 7%. So I still feel like, the gap is a lot. And that's what makes those of us who are doing this, that's what makes our job so much more important, because our lived experience is very rarely spoken about. Um, and in that, speaking of our lived experience, I feel like there are films made about women, but very rarely are the films made by women as well. Um, and even that, you might have a female director, but having a female cinematographer almost is seen as a liability by productions, because they think that it's too much of a risk. I've been told this, that it's too much of a risk to have a woman cinematographer, um, even if it's a film about women, for women, all of those things. Um, so in that sense, it's very necessary to have this perspective, because the perspective is not seen. We don't know how women look at the world. We have very little examples of how women look at the world. So in that sense, it is important and it is crucial that in a day and age where, imaging has become so easy, imaging is now, it's on your phones. Everybody can image. So to give the platform to women, to people from marginalized communities, to see and tell their own stories their way. Like, I will not say that I'm the one who should be telling all the stories of people from marginalized communities. No, I was born in an upper caste family, so it's not my responsibility or like my thing to carry that, I'm the flag bearer for these stories. We should create more opportunities through film collectives, through spaces, through universities, where we can give people from all kinds of communities the chance and the space to tell their own stories. So I don't know whether that answered your question, but it's like, it's super crucial. And of course it does, whatever lived experience I have does, leak into my films. The way that I see the world does come into my films, which is what the workshop that we are doing, this, what we started with this morning is about. How do you see the world? And what is the perspective that you bring to the world? So, yeah.
I think that did answer what I asked, and I think it's very important for each of us here to know also, because a lot of students in the media department are females, and I think you kind of set an example that even if it is 7%, I think even the smallest bit can add a huge impact. Women like you are an example. Our head of the department is a woman, and that's we're a small department, but the way you lead it, you're setting an example for not just females but even males, how you incorporate and how you represent females in movies. So I think that's a beautiful take on that answer. Let's just shift to the idea of decision making and restraint, I would say. So your work has had a distinct and diverse restraint. It doesn't over exaggerate or force emotions visually. For example, even in the movie that had been screened, Holy Curse, there was no over exaggeration of emotions. So how do you arrive at your visual language and communication? How much of it is instinct versus how much of it a deliberate design to be portrayed on screen?
So my experience is, I say that my heart is in documentary, but I love fiction because I can, play with light more than I can play with light in documentary. So in documentary, I would say largely instinct, right? Like, it's mostly instinct. It's the connection that I have with the protagonist or the subject of the documentary. And I like to say it's like a dance that we do. It's my relationship with that person, sometimes irrespective of the director also, to say that I need to create a relationship with this person so that we can, they can be completely open to the camera. And the camera is not some like, in Hindi they say Hawa. It's not like a monster that is, making people uncomfortable. So often we use this word of female gaze, and I feel like that word has been kind of overused right now, because it's not a female gaze as much as it's a gaze that understands, or a gaze that can empathize. And I know male cinematographers who are like, as you know, they have that inbuilt in them as much as it goes. So as much as you're, being a antithesis to the industry that already exists, the industry of making films, because film is an art form first, then it became an industry. So if we can go back to the art form of it, and if we can go back to the first intention of it, we can all find that gaze, So I do feel like that part comes from instinct, but when it comes to fiction, I have a straight process, and that process is it's fun for everyone involved, because I think if you're not having fun while making films, don't make films, do something else. Really, we must be having fun while we're doing, because we're exploring with, we're creating something new. So my process is simple. I go to the director once I have read the script, and I say, okay, now I've read the script. Now you tell me, how do you want the film to feel? Give me 1 or 2 words. Now that 1 or 2 words, whatever that is, that demonstrates, and that becomes my guiding light for the grammar of the film. I all have watched Holy Curse, and we were talking about it even in the workshop. There are certain ways the film makes you feel, right? There is a certain sense of claustrophobia, there is a certain sense of freedom. So when I asked the director, I said, Snigdha, what do you want people to feel? She said, I want them to feel like they're stuck in a box. So if they're stuck in a box, that changes the grammar of that part, right? The aspect ratio changes. It becomes more box-like. The lenses change. The way that we are, framing the light, the way that we're framing the characters, all of that change according to that one word. So it's basically on that one word, like what is the verb that will guide the movement, the lighting, the framing, all of that. So with freedom also comes like wider lenses, more like depth of field, it's not as shallow. So yeah, that's how I would generally work. So it's a little bit of instinct on doc, but on fiction, it's deliberate, but you do, get all the puzzle pieces together and then let the magic happen also. Because often on set, like, if you have all the masalas right, then that tadka is on its own. It just like sort of happens on its own. So yeah.
You recently mentioned about Holy Curse. Being stuck in a box is what Snigdha ma'am had mentioned. So adding to that, it's a film that all of us have already watched. It was significant not just artistically, but I think also historically, stereotypically, because it's not something new. It's been going on for ages and ages, It explored themes like gender identity, familiar expectations through an 11-year-old child. So when you approached this particular project, did you actually feel the weight of representation, or did you consciously try to let the story be the way it is, breathe without any pressure?
I think I had mentioned before, I don't take the weight of representation. It's not, because the moment I start feeling that weight, that, oh, this is a story that has to be, you start taking things very seriously, and that's not how I like to live my life or make my films. I like to say that this is a subject, this has a certain, there is a technicality to it, right? Like you are still breaking it down based on what you want people to feel, and then you're breaking that feeling down. So if I start feeling the weight of representation of every film that I'm trying to make, then we'll get stuck in a sort of academic dialogue for a long time. I'm not an academic person. I've not been. Someday maybe I will be. But right now I'm more of a person who I'm more of a doer. So I like taking things as they come, and being active with it rather than going into but if we do it this way, then it's never ending then.
I think there's a clear distinction for you, which I think everybody should learn, between honesty and responsibility. I think that's something we should not just carry in our professional lives, but I think in our personal life, lives also, because I think it keeps you going and it makes you enjoy the process of doing your work. So for people who know and for people who don't, ma'am's movie called Convergence, Courage in a Crisis has been nominated for the Emmy Awards. Can we please have a big round of applause? Congratulations, ma'am. So a global recognition brings visibility and a lot of popularism, especially for stories that have often been minimalized. Did that recognition change the way you think about cinematography at all? Like for your future work references?
We got the. I was shooting Rainbow Rishta in Guwahati when I woke up to the news that we had been nominated for the Emmy, and I had never experienced something like that before in my life. And obviously, I couldn't let it get ahead of myself because I had work to do that day. And so I just like remained really like stoic about it. And people had found out because of my social media, etc. So I let that just be. I don't think, an Emmy nomination is great because it does put you in a better position to get work that is more suited to you as a person. And if people know that I like to do stories about, people who don't get platforms generally, then I will get more of that work with the recognition. But it makes the responsibility so much more also, because you don't really have the option of slacking. Then you don't really have the option of saying, no, I've done this and now let me do like some animal kind of movie and come back. Because then you are held at a certain space and you are held responsible for your actions. So I take it with that. It's I let it basically keep me in check, keep me accountable, and keep me in a position where I'm always trying to do more, where I'm always trying to say, okay, how can we collectivize not only in in the film set, not only in the working of the set, but also outside it. How can we do better for humanity? Because very often what happens, especially with documentaries, is that very fast, we make a documentary and then we say, oh, impact. We start throwing these words around. But it needs to be more intrinsic than that, right? The reason we are making a documentary, if you're making a documentary on a race car driver, sure, you don't have a responsibility towards anyone. But if you are making a documentary or a fiction film for that matter about somebody from a marginalized community, it's your responsibility to take people who are there and try and uplift their lives in some way. So how can we collectivize and really make that better is, I feel like, what with every little, step that I take or things that happen to me, like the Emmy happened. We weren't like aiming for the Emmy, right? The nomination happened. We got longlisted for the Oscars with Holy Curse. It's something that was it wasn't something we were aiming for. We just aimed to make a good film that would tell a good story. We could have more like screenings with people who wanted it. Like even now, people are writing to me saying, I feel so seen. I feel like I haven't been seen with the film like that. And it's a 15-minute film. So if we can do that with our films, that's what we should be aiming for. Because there's enough noise, there's enough entertainment. So at least this is what I feel, that if I have a platform, I need to use it to do better. Like the camera is my weapon of choice against the tyranny in the world.
I think that's a valuable perspective because, recognition can be challenging, encouraging, but also grounding at the same time. You always have to keep doing better. There's nothing stopping you. You can't stop now because, there's already a representation that you're portraying to the audience, and you can't let them down because you also often portray sensitive topics. So, to try and uplift them in some way is what truly matters.
Not only audience, myself. I can't let myself down. That's first. Meaning, I really
Can we have a huge round of applause for that, please? I think with the conversation that we've had, we can clearly see that, this is how even if it is 7%, it should be worth it. Quality over quantity. I think that's what you've portrayed, and that's beautiful. Thank you.
No, of course, and I don't think like I'll be very honest, and this may be a controversial opinion. I don't really care about an audience when I'm making a film. As a director or a DP, the audience is not what cares for what I care for. I care about like what am I feeling internally, what am I portraying externally. But whether the audience likes it or not, if you get into that loop, I mean, it's a dangerous loop because then you will make things only for mass consumption. You will not make things that are true to you. So first true to you, then true to an audience, I guess. For me at least.
No, I think that's something we should all be following. So, moving from recognition to what actually happens in a set, you worked across different cultural and production contexts. When you step on a set, what's the first visual decision that you instinctively make? You know, the one tone that sets the flow of the events.
So if we're talking from a fiction standpoint, I feel like it's not the first time I'm ever stepping on a set. Like I don't go in blind. I do go in for like location scouts, recce's. So I know the space I'm going into. I see it as much as possible at the time that I'm going to be shooting because I don't like completely over lighting my sets. I like working with what we have so that it's more naturalistic. And I believe that cinematography needs to be transparent. Like if it's in your face, then it's not a job well done. Because then just make a cinematography reel, no? It has to be in service of the story always. So that being said, my first time on set is never on the day of shoot. But if it is for a documentary, for example, if it is the first time on shoot, then what I do is, again, I ask the director, what is the feeling that you want to convey? And it guides from there. That one sentence I have been using since, I want to say 2018 as a process, and it has never let me down. It's only made my storytelling, I think, stronger and stronger. At least as a process, I know like, this is what I will get to, this is what I need to do next. And the first thing that I do in fiction, when I'm on set, even, you know, when we've come, today is day one of shoot, first thing we do is we do a blocking. So we don't light, everybody watches the scene happen. Everybody says, okay, this is where the character is going. And then everyone, my first AC, my gaffer, everybody will say, you know, if this is what they're doing, then this is where it should come from, even if our lighting design was otherwise. So we first do the blocking. Everybody watches the blocking. It's a kind of a set where, you know, at least I like to try and work in sets where everyone is equal. There's no like hierarchy. There's none of that. So we try and work in a way that everyone will give a suggestion on what needs to happen. And so it feels better also. Everybody is in it, you know, and everybody has skin in the game. And then we light, and then we, you know, that's, so very often, like I just shot a film not far from here last week, and that's how we did it. We redid every scene from scratch when we get there. Also, one more thing that I found I really enjoy doing is once we have lit the entire set, and when we're going for our first take, I try and do, as a director and a cinematographer, I try and do the first take silent. No dialogues. Even if there are dialogues, get your actors to just move between the spaces, because sometimes you really don't need dialogues. We realize that we, you know, over talk in our films, especially when we're just starting out. We like flooding it with dialogues because we think people have to know what I'm trying to say as a director and all of that. But it's not necessary. We can start really simple and let action, let blocking do what it needs to do. And very often that makes it to the film. Because it's so strong, the performances are so strong that you don't need anything else.
I think we've covered it all, you know, being perspective in process, decision making, restraints, especially when you mentioned that cinema is not just an industry, it's an art form, and I think that should retain.